I agree with both President Trump and Bannon. I mean, Steve Bannon is one of my heroes, as is President Trump. And there are some senators that would be better replaced. But my point that I made today, entitled "I'm battling Steve Bannon," I'm not battling him. I just think our efforts should be spent instead on getting the Democrats who are in the 10 states where President Trump won, having them replaced with Republicans. So my emphasis is replacing Democrats, and Steve Bannon is replacing incumbents, so we both have a role to play.
That's conservative donor Foster Freeze in an interview with Neil Cavuto saying that he will not be joining the Steve Bannon effort to fight against fellow Republicans, even if they are in the establishment. Of course, Bannon has been reaching out to top GOP donors, hoping to fund his goal of ousting incumbents in 2018. In fact, all of them except Ted Cruz. And now there are reports that Mitch McConnell supporters are actually weighing the switch to Bannon. Here to discuss is Republican strategist and fundraiser Noelle Nikpour and Michael Barnes, a former George W. Bush policy advisor and current DCBA Law and Policy Managing Director. Noelle, let me start with you because you follow the money like no one else. Are you already, or are you sensing a potential shift in where the money is going right now?
This is going to put every fundraiser in a very difficult situation that handles either in super PACs or handles campaigns, because you've got a lot of moving pieces here. You've got, you know, someone like Foster Freeze, who's a fantastic donor, but you also have the Bannon effect. And let me just tell you something about the Bannon effect. He is going on the anti-establishment, and he's trying to challenge GOP people in a primary. We already have a group that does this, and it's called the Club for Growth, founded in 1999.
Yeah, but isn't the Club for Growth more of an establishment organization itself?
No. Do you not remember how they started a long time ago? Ted Cruz. That's why he's a product of the Club for Growth. Down in Texas, he was challenging Dewhurst, which was an establishment GOP guy. Club for Growth comes in. They have a runoff and puts, you know, several $1 million into it. Boom. We have Ted Cruz. We have Tom Cotton. We have Rand Paul. Those are about as anti-establishment as you can go. Nobody can say that Ted Cruz is establishment. They can't say that Tom Cotton is establishment. These are products, along with their billionaire donors, of the Club for Growth. So we have this movement. Maybe Bannon should look at joining hands with a movement of anti-establishment where donors are in place, and donors, some of them that, like Robert Mercer, that have already given to this fund, that maybe we can build upon that versus starting another anti-establishment.
That's a good thing. By the way, I went to the very first meeting in New York, and they misspelled my name, so I didn't go back. But not because of that. Not because of that. They had me as Charles Haynes. I'm like, who is that? But, Michael, there is a fight right now going on, a real serious internal civil war of sorts for the heart and soul of the Republican Party. And deep-pocketed donors are going to have to make a choice.
And history speaks for itself. Let's look back to 2010, for example. As we approach Halloween, how can we not think about the I'm Not a Witch Christine O'Donnell candidate, who was a result of one of these primary challenges against what was so-called establishment, but really moderate, willing to negotiate Republican, who could have taken that seat from Senator Joe Biden after he became the VP. And they lost that seat miserably, and that happened repeatedly over the course of those 2 election cycles. And that's what they're setting up to occur at this point, because the types of people that Steve Bannon is trying to push, they will not win in a general election. And even if we look in Alabama, right, the candidate Roy Moore, who's now running for the replacement seat in Alabama for U.S. Senate, he's at like 42% against the Democrat in a state that typically the Republican wins statewide by 22 to 28%.
Well, so, you know, in the spirit of Halloween, some would say what you just said are scare tactics. But it's not necessarily working with everyone. Let's take, for instance, Bernie Marcus, right, founder of Home Depot. I want you guys to take a quick listen to what he had to say yesterday.
You and Steve Bannon seem to have a meeting, and that raised questions that maybe Bernie Marcus shares Bannon's view that the party has to veer toward these rebel rousers, maybe more, you know, party challenges to incumbent senators and the like. Do you agree with that?
Well, no, not really. Look, McConnell has a chance. He's got an opportunity. He's a very wise guy. He's a statesman. He's been there for long. He knows how to work the halls of Congress. And his job is to pass legislation. If he can't pass legislation, I'm not jumping with Bannon. Bannon's got his own team. He's got his own ideas. If he comes up with candidates who are good candidates, I'll back him on that. But I'm not a follower. I like to do what I think is right.
So, Noelle, is that how it's going to work? They'll probably pick and choose amongst the candidates that are rolled out to them from Steve Bannon?
Absolutely. And Bernie Marcus, he was one of the biggest donors that we had for Rudy Giuliani. He does what he wants to do, as many of these guys do. Many of these guys are billionaires, and you don't tell them what to do. They didn't make their money. I mean, you've got Robert Mercer, worth $12 billion. You have people like Jim Walton, who, favors, education, school voucher, school choice, worth $18, $20 billion. You have so many of these donors. Nobody really tells them what to do. So I don't think, I like Steve Bannon, and I appreciate what he's trying to do, and I like Breitbart, but I don't see Steve Bannon, wooing and getting all these people to, lead the establishment. And you've got to look at the fact that Steve Wynn, the finance chairman for the RNC, they just raised about a couple of weeks ago $100 million total within the 9 months.
The RNC has set a record, 9-month record year to date. They've never had this much money in their coffers, but they say they're going to go, they'll support whoever wins these incumbencies. So they're staying out of this particular skirmish, which is going to get hot and heavy. Thank you both very much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Charles.